Well, that's no fun. A red daily candle like that on Bitcoin giving up days worth of green candles, days worth of rally everybody was enjoying as Bitcoin broke the 50 moving average, the 20-day moving average, and just all the way back down. No surprise, you can see CPI data was released earlier today. Everybody knows. Now, this story, though, goes back, and I want to actually start this video before we dive into Bitcoin TA and Cardano TA. Cardano at a very interesting area at an apex of a pretty big symmetrical triangle. I want to talk about this. This is a video I did, and this was back around a month and a half ago, just shy of a month and a half ago, August 1st. Check this out real quick. You see what's in store potentially for the current S&P 500 chart. So here it is. Here's this rally that we're in. Here's a 200-week moving average. We're going to continue monitoring it. But if there's resistance here, or if it's up here at the 50-week moving average, it doesn't matter. There's still a case for downside. It's that case for downside. Like, that has been my concern. And you all know me, everybody. I anticipate upside in the same sense that I anticipate downside. I don't sit here predicting and saying I'm calling things. I'm anticipating these scenarios. I'm visualizing these scenarios. That's why I'm here. That's why I do what I do, so I just can make comfortable decisions for myself, and hopefully that proves valuable to you. But oftentimes when we're using all of these tools in collaboration with each other, these scenarios really play out, whether it's to the upside or to the downside, really play out so consistently. So in this case, what we're talking about here was we were looking at the crash of 2008, right? This is the S&P 500 index. And we were talking about this move off of the 200-week moving average through the 20-week moving average and up to the 50-week moving average here before that crash happened. The reason we were monitoring that and talking about it is because you can see here on the S&P 500, it didn't quite hit the 200-week moving average. Just above it, we bounced and rallied to the 20-week moving average. And we were looking at, okay, well, this 50-week moving average resistance potentially in play, and if it plays out like it did in 2008, we could see resistance. And if the markets are not recovered, and if things are still bad, and there's still a lot of fear, and we're still in the unknown territories of CPI data coming out, interest rates rising, and everybody's fearful, right? Because these markets are so emotional, even if they're over emotional sometimes. If that's still happening at this time, there could be resistance off the 50-week moving average for traditional markets, the S&P 500 chart that you see here, and we could come back down. So right now, we've broken back actually below the 20-week moving average, and in my view, there's still a lot of room for downside, at the very least to test the 200-week moving average. So that's something that's in play. Now, if this chart, if the S&P 500 index is kind of making a move, that's like almost a 10% move for equity markets. That's a big move when you're looking at that, how it translates to something like Bitcoin, something like crypto. We know Bitcoin right now, in terms of using a bunch of these tools that we use for Bitcoin, we know Bitcoin right now is in a massive Fibonacci retracement area. This is a bear market formation area that Bitcoin has found itself in multiple times in previous bear market lows. And not only that, Bitcoin has found its bottom below the 786 line, that 786 line right around 17,000. This is not the concern for me because I'm ready for it. It's just more of like the thing that's really just so strong on my radar. It's like one of the biggest things I'm waiting for, I'm watching as we analyze the world, we analyze the macroeconomic events that are happening right now all over the place. And I'm just like, the case for this to happen is really big. And it's not to say it's going to happen, but I think there's more benefits to anticipate that right now and to kind of just not focus on it, but really magnify it so that we're prepared. Because this move, a 35% to the downside below the 786, would be a commonplace move for Bitcoin in this bear market. It wouldn't be out of the ordinary. And that's the thing that might scare some people. But if you're an opportunity seeker, if you're a value investor in these markets and you're even looking for altcoins, this Bitcoin chart, it acts as such a roadmap and such a clear narrated voice in the storyline of crypto. So that's why we use this Bitcoin chart. So we've already established there's absolutely more room for downside potentially. And if we go to the daily chart, we can kind of get a sense, even if you're kind of tracking the shorter term. Bitcoin is retracing right now. It's hovering right around the 20-day moving average. So if you want to just see if Bitcoin can kind of recover, this is what I'd be watching for on the shorter term charts. It's the last swing low to this swing high that Bitcoin just saw with this new CPI data. Now, this is kind of a nice little fail-safe support area on the short term for Bitcoin. And it's kind of plays into, well, what if markets kind of overreacted a little bit? Like everybody knew that it wasn't going to be like amazing news coming out, right? Everybody kind of knew that. Maybe expectations were, it would have been a little bit more positive of news, right? With CPI report and the numbers that came out, but it wasn't terrible. And it wasn't like this brand new shocking event. So what if markets did overreact? And what if they're getting ready to actually just, all right, they kind of reset, they consolidated, the fear took its place. You could see the volatility index increase today. It happened, it's over, everybody took a deep breath. Now let's like continue that rally, right? What if that happens? So if that happens, going into tomorrow, this is what I'd be watching for. It's a shorter term Fibonacci. It's a higher low Fibonacci area, the 618, right around where Bitcoin is right now, around 21,150 to the 786 line. So some room for support, some room for some downside, even overnight, but $19,400 is the 786. So this area of higher low support for Bitcoin could be this kind of scenario for Bitcoin to bounce off of this support area and just continue to the upside. And that's if maybe the US dollar currency index kind of settles down now after it had its nice little moment of bullishness today. You can see it on the daily chart. If it starts settling down, this could be in play for traditional markets, right? We have the S&P 500 index right here and Bitcoin to kind of rally, maybe potentially continue to test these areas to the upside. Bitcoin still has so much resistance ahead of it. Even when it was up here just yesterday, in the $22,000 to $23,000 range, Bitcoin still had a ton of resistance ahead of it that it needed to break. So it really has a lot of work ahead of itself if it's going to rally, if it's going to climb out of this. But this is what I'd be watching, this support area that we just talked about coming off of this big day for the CPI report coming out. Now, going over to ADA, it's kind of the same thing for me. I'm just like, I would rather just play it conservatively. I know what downside is in play for ADA. I mean, that it's for me, it's really that 30-cent range in this area where equity markets are falling, Bitcoin's falling, and Bitcoin's breaking out of its Fibonacci and just falling below that $17,000 area. Cardano going to be likely falling into the 30s, right? And that 30-cent range, I don't know what it is. There's no real TA behind this, but 31 cents. I don't know why. I've just been thinking about that number for a while. Is on my mind. So I just, for my approach to crypto, and that's all this is, everybody. It's not financial advice. It's for entertainment purposes. It's for hopefully the data that I'm tracking can help you. It's just me just tracking these charts and just trying to have some fun, create some content while I'm tracking these charts, because crypto markets are crazy. And this is my approach. It's a more conservative approach. It's a more, especially in bear markets, anticipating these worst case scenarios. It's the downside scenario because we're in this accumulation phase on the macro. So that's where the opportunity is anyway. Why not visualize those scenarios? If Bitcoin and Cardano just explodes to the upside, I'll enjoy it. I'm ready, right? That's fine. But I also want to be ready for the downside. So to the downside, breaking out of all of the support that we've been tracking, and we're going to look at on the daily chart. If Cardano falls, I think into that 30 cent range is an area that I'd be watching for potential support. And if we're looking at Cardano on the daily, let's see what this looks like right now with where it is. So it's been consolidating for months, all right? This is all the way back here in May. You can see just this lower high and these higher lows forming the consolidation of ADA into the symmetrical triangle that we're tracking. And all the while, we have this longer term kind of curved trend line, ADA being squeezed into all of that mess. And now we're in the apex of the triangle. And you can see ADA is just kind of just going along for the ride with all of this new data that's coming out, everything that's happening with crypto. And you can see ADA just with the 20-day moving average wrapping around the 50-day, that green line around the blue line. And right now, ADA actually below the 20-day moving average and really testing critical support. So the critical support continues to be this dotted yellow trend line, which is part of the symmetrical triangle. It makes up these basically these higher lows on ADA that you see here. But you zoom out on the daily chart, in case you haven't seen me do this before, this trend line, and I'm all the way on the daily, so I'm going to have to zoom. I'm going to have to kind of really go over here. This trend line goes all the way back to 2018 in November. So that's the trend line that's actually making up this kind of more midterm triangle. Look at that. So that trend line, and then also this other true lower trend line, which is the true lower trend line of these higher lows. Let me move this up a little bit. That's kind of the support area. And you can see it was a fail-safe support back here when we were tracking this in end of August. There was support there, and we're in a similar boat right now for ADA. But breakout target to the downside is 27 cents. So below 30-cent range. I'd anticipate a break to the downside and a pullback up. So breaks into the 30s, pulls back up for a test of the trend line, and then potentially on its way to the target of around 27 cents. So that's the true target for that symmetrical triangle. I should mention, because I know that just sounds bearish just talking about that alone, if crypto rallies and if there's just, the bulls step in and do something crazy, and I just wouldn't be surprised. Like, crypto is an insane roller coaster ride. I wouldn't be surprised. This is the target to the upside for ADA. It's around 80 cents out of that symmetrical triangle. So it's something to consider as well. So as we sit here right in between the two targets, you really have to be ready, everybody, for both scenarios. Technical analysis is not about predicting. That's not what we're here doing. There's no value in there, because guess what? The top analysts, the top traders in the world, they just don't know what's going to happen. They really just don't know. There's a TV personality that has, his own stock show, I think, every night. And I believe that the data says that 51% of his picks, and he has almost 400,000 viewers, I think, every single night. And I think it's 51% of his picks that's his win rate. So it truly is 50-50. So it's not about knowing exactly what's going to happen, but it's about using the wisdom to prepare for both scenarios to make your financial decisions, whether that's accumulating in certain areas that you're comfortable with, whether it's dollar cost averaging, whatever that is, it's for you to sit back to figure that out. I track the charts so that we can have a cool, calm, collected mentality in these crazy, crazy crypto waters. So that's it. That's what I'm watching on Cardano. I'm waiting, though, because we are in the apex of the symmetrical triangle. And when we get in these environments, it's not guaranteed, but this is typically when a break happens. So let's look and let's watch to see if ADA gets a break. Don't forget Vassal hard fork right here, this green line coming up very quick, just over a week away. And it's going to be very interesting to see what direction ADA breaks into. But the consolidation, it looks like, is coming to a close, and it looks like ADA is getting ready to break. So that's all, everybody. It's all I got for tonight. I want to do a quick TA video. Let's see what happens overnight. Let's track it. Let's watch. Thank you so much for coming by. If you're still here, that's amazing. I appreciate you so much. I really do. Please hit that like button. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.